So I'm very happy to have here tonight. Our last meeting, we had a very robust discussion about workforce development. We had Mary Jane Bertram from the Workforce Development Institute, and she imparted a whole lot of information to us, and nuts and bolts of how the work that she's done, and gave us, and we had a really great discussion on ideas of what we'd like to see implemented at iPark 87. And prior to that meeting, I had discussions with both Beth Davenport and Chris Marx, as did Regis. So I want to welcome you both to TownOfUlsterCitizens.org, and thank you for joining us tonight. I went to the websites and just got very brief information about you to introduce you. So Beth Davenport is a co-founder and director of programs at Stockade Works. She has been working in the Hudson Valley, creating an entertainment and technology ecosystem with access for all that plays a major role in transforming the region economically and positions it as a leader in social innovation. And Stockade Works is interested in being a part of iPark 87. And there, under your umbrella is Upriver Studios, which is in Saugerties, which has been very active, providing jobs for people and creating, it's where Pretty Little Liars, right, has been filming. And they have a long-term contract, and hopefully they're renewed every year, that they can live out that contract and maybe even get more. And Christopher Marx is the Associate Vice President for Workforce Economic Development and Community Partnerships at SUNY Ulster, where he plays a pivotal role in supporting the workforce needs of our Ulster County employers, large and small. SUNY Ulster is poised to play a significant role in the workforce development at iPark 87. And part of our discussion last week, supporting businesses and work that is developed over there, it has to be supported by education. And that plays a real important part of developing not just $15 an hour jobs, but jobs that will pay and provide advancement opportunities for people. So I'm going to ask you both, Beth, you want to go first and talk for a few minutes about Stockade Works and the work that you're doing?
Sure, thank you. And I always love to be in a conversation with Chris Marx. So hi, Chris, and thanks for having me. So Mary Stuart Masterson and I met back in 2014, 2015. We had both moved up here independently from New York City. I now have been in the Hudson Valley, a resident for, I think, over 10 years. So I think I get some sort of badge at some point. But when I met Mary Stuart, she was looking really at how we could bring more in film and television to the region. And we started working together, really looking at how can we do this in a way to provide local job opportunities with a priority on access and inclusion, right? Because working in film and television on set, everyone should have access to it. It's an apprenticeship type career with pathways to union benefits and all good things, quality jobs. And also, film and television spends huge amounts of dollars locally. So one television series might spend upwards of $25 million locally for hotels and lumber and food and all that good stuff. So we really looked at it as great. There's a lot of independent film up here. The Film Commission and Woodstock Film Festival had already built a bedrock of an industry here, and we wanted to infuse it to be a new economic engine in the region. So we knew we wanted to start with job training and job opportunities first. It was really important to us that we could provide these opportunities to local Hudson Valley residents, and that there were more available professionally trained crew to hire when more film and television projects came to town. So in 2016, we founded Stockade Works. Stockade Works is a nonprofit that trains, mentors, and places local Hudson Valley residents on film and television projects that shoot in the Hudson Valley. We have a variety of different types of programs. I check out stockadeworks.org. You can see what areas we've trained in the past and what we're doing right now and in the future. We have our flagship crew boot camp, which is a 360-degree view of working on set, really hands-on, working under industry professionals who are still out there working. So it's a real on-the-job type training. We do industry-specific, department-specific workshops. So you can learn about hair and makeup or grip and electric, or assistant directing, right? All of those names, all those funny names that you see at the end of the movie, like what's a gaffer? What's a key grip? We train people to do all those jobs. And we do a ton of lifelong mentorship, job placements. We've referred people to over 600 jobs in the Hudson Valley since our first training in 2017. And we've trained over 150 residents, over 50% women and over 30% BIPOC. So Stockade Works is alive and doing well. We are really excited. We have a new executive director. Her name is Susie Safranco. She is born and raised in the Hudson Valley and had a stint in New York City. She comes to us from the International Center of Photography, and we feel really lucky to have her. I want to just say one other thing briefly, which is, so Stockade Works is a nonprofit, and part of the puzzle that Mary Stewart and I wanted to put together to both train and then attract and retain our local workforce. And the second piece of that puzzle is a separate company, Upriver Studios, which opened up in Saugerties last year, and we signed our first client, Pretty Little Liars. Upriver Studios is a women-owned and led, climate-forward soundstage facility. It's 100,000 square feet. Currently, this Warner Media HBO production is renting the entirety of our sound stages and offices. When we can, come and visit. It's really cool to see the built sets. But what is interesting is we proved the market for a large scale television show in the Hudson Valley. This is one of the largest budgeted shows in North America right now. They're hiring hundreds of local people, Stockade Works grads and others, spending tons of money, like buying entire antique stores out of their inventory, right, for this show. So Upriver is poised to expand so that we can bring more film and television productions. Enter in iPark 87. So Upriver will, if all goes the way we all hope, have purpose-built sound stages and be an industry attractor. So all those ancillary businesses, so not just the place for the productions to come and shoot, but the grip and electric equipment and the camera equipment and the trucks and all of this. And Stockade Works will be the workforce development in partnership with SUNY Ulster and all our great BOCES, all of our great educational institutions that we already have partnerships with. We will train across the film and television industry at iPark 87 and do the same thing, do our trainings, do our mentorship, do our job placement, with an added bonus that any of the vendors that we attract in film and television to iPark 87, we want to, them to have a training agreement with Stockade Works so that we can really infuse any industry that's coming in with built-in trainings. And that is all I have to say. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Beth. I will also say that I love being in any workforce conversation with Beth. So when Beth first came to town, when she was talking about, I think we met early on when you showed up, and you talked about your and Mary Stewart's vision for filmmaking in the Hudson Valley. But the thing that you kept coming back to was these local job pathways. You talked about young people in these incredible industries, but you also talked about how, and you mentioned it again, this lifelong mentorship, how you're ensuring that, in an industry that, maybe for some doesn't have a lot of stability, you've brought this piece of stability to, those who are coming through your training and your workforce. And so we were in, we were 100% behind you and what you were bringing here. And it's so great to see what you've developed. For us at SUNY Ulster, I think that's really kind of a great example of, a conversation like that, and, continuing to check in with the industry, although, we don't have this big base of program in this arts area, finding ways that we can see how we can align with the industries that develop, with the businesses that develop, and support not only students who are coming through our programs, but looking for new programs that we can design to help the industries that are here and the ones that we think are coming, right? So I think I want to talk a little bit about some of the program areas that we're focusing on now, and some of the resources that we have for local businesses. And then I think some of the trends that we're starting to see, some of the trends that we're seeing with some folks who are looking to come into the workforce. What is our workforce base? When we're part of economic development conversations with companies, businesses that are looking to come to the Hudson Valley, there's a checklist that they're looking for, right? They're looking for a wide variety of resources, and the different industries are going to be looking for different things. But the one of the things that kind of goes across all of them is there a strong workforce? Do you have the capacity for my business's vision for growth? And sometimes it's, as I said before, about programs that already exist and students that maybe are coming up through college programs that could be workers. But I hope too that it's also this ability for companies to come in and see a partner in the community college that can be a part of that development as they grow and as they kind of expand. So looking at the kind of the vision for iPark 87 and some of those development areas, here's some of the areas that that we have seen some great growth and great stability here in the Hudson Valley. So one of the areas that has been very much a lot of smaller businesses, but with really deep roots in the Hudson Valley, is advanced manufacturing. And we've seen this, I've seen this since I started working here about 15 years ago. And I'm always just really taken by the deep, deep roots that our manufacturers have here. The other piece of it, which also really struck me about the Hudson Valley, which I think at the time seemed really unique to me, was just how integrated the community of manufacturers were in the Hudson Valley, where they have been very deliberate about taking their supply chain and just bringing it in really tight so that they are mutual supports for one another. There was this very intentional, by some of them, a statement to say that they're working to not compete, but to find ways that they can better align. And for us, it was this amazing opportunity to fit education into that space also as a partner. So really over the past, over a decade now, we've been slowly building up our capacity to train manufacturing tech workers. And I know that this is something that Pat Ryan mentioned in his State of the State. I know it's something that often comes up with iPark. I mean, initially it was a large scale manufacturing operation. So there's some infrastructure there and design that certainly could lend itself to that. So what we've worked on developing, interestingly enough, SUNY Ulster, when it started back in the late 60s and moving into the 70s, was had a very strong manufacturing machining program that fed the local industry. That sort of shifted away back in the early 80s and then through the 90s. But it's something that's starting to come back. We've always had a manufacturing certificate program at the college. Right now, under review by the State University of New York and by the Education Department, we have an associate's in occupational science in manufacturing, and we've been working with the Council of Industry to develop about a half a dozen specific tracks that are aligned with their assessment of the needs of local manufacturers in the Hudson Valley. So those include things like, CNC machining, computerized system machining, some mechatronics, which is a lot about measuring, things that focus on the skills of our manufacturers who are specific product design solution manufacturers is what we seem to have in the Hudson Valley who are connecting with us. The other piece to the development of this has been, particularly over the past couple of years, resources to support advanced manufacturing and advanced manufacturing training to a level that I haven't seen before. It really spiked after the recession in the late 2000s, and it has surpassed it now. The U.S. Department, the New York State Department of Labor has combined with SUNY to develop a statewide apprenticeship program that provides training costs for manufacturing apprentices. So we have a pathway with tuition covered through public and some private funds that can bring students into a pre-manufacturing program, connect them with manufacturers to begin apprenticeships, and then continue their training with the manufacturers over the next couple of years as they build their apprenticeship standing. The great thing about doing that with a community college is that all of our courses, while meeting those industry credentials that our manufacturers are looking for, is that we are also providing credits towards degrees. So if students are looking to stack their credentials, eventually moving on to maybe bachelor's level or master's level, they don't waste any time. They've already started building towards that. One local manufacturer, Frank Filatin, had often talked, pretty passionately about how one of the things that just, I think, brings him the most satisfaction is when he's able to bring on some really talented young workers, see them grow, know they're going to possibly leave him, but to see them on this trajectory in this field that, has been, a part of his life. And I think there's a lot of sense of that with local manufacturers. So when you talk about young people and pathways for young people in the Hudson Valley and specifically in Ulster County, I think this is definitely one area that certainly now still has a lot of jobs available and has an incredibly supportive group of employers. The other sector that I wanted to talk about, which we've been investing in for a long time, is kind of this broad sector of clean energy and green jobs. This has been really challenging for us to get our hands around because, 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of a niche, new thing. And I think what many of us thought was that it would be this revolution of new jobs that would be these brand new pathways for our young people to, work in the solar energy industry or the wind energy industry, or, some of, smart grids and things like that. What we found out pretty quickly a little over a decade ago was that the clean energy and green jobs was more of an evolutionary industry than a new industry. It focused on companies that were already doing work in various areas of building construction and infrastructure and building design and building maintenance, and sort of, greening those jobs, right? So our students were contractors and electricians and plumbers and architects and engineers, and the ones that saw the new technologies and how they could begin to incorporate that into their work. So instead of early on training young people to fill green jobs, we were training the people who were creating the green jobs. And that's something that continues. And now we're starting to see much more clear pathways, I believe, for young people to move into some of these sectors. It's definitely become much more established, but it took some time. And during that time, we invested a lot at SUNY Ulster in these training programs. We have one of only 4 test centers for building science in New York State, right on our Stone Ridge campus. We train energy auditors and building design engineers who come and take these very specialized trainings. And then, the building that we constructed with funds from NYSERDA is certified to provide that testing environment for them, that we can do those tests. So we've graduated thousands that have gone out through the Hudson Valley and beyond in the green and clean energy area. We also have a degree program in this area that is also working to evolve. It's our green building maintenance and management. But we're finding that more and more companies are looking towards building electrification and the sciences and building science behind building electrification as a new field. So we're looking to evolve this. One of our partners a couple of years ago, and we're still trying to figure out how to do this, but Mohawk Mountain House was one of the first partners that came to us and showed us what they were looking for. And it was with conversations with folks like them that helped us to develop what is now the framework for this building electrification program at SUNY Ulster. The other thing is kind of cutting across a lot of our programs, which you may have heard of, is the development of micro-credentials. So if you don't know much about micro-credentials, they are short-term, usually somewhere around 6 to 12, 15 credits. Sometimes it's college courses, sometimes it's industry certification training, sometimes it's an integration of the both of those, where students come and they take this micro-credential program, and the program has been vetted already by local employers who say, yes, these are the skills that we want. And the students are able to go through that program and then have it lead directly to a job. Again, it's that stacking piece where they're earning college credits. So if they want to keep going on to an associate's degree or bachelor's degree, they're able to do it. But one of the things that's really important about building this is the state has, and SUNY has really worked to kind of develop standards around this. So now that we're moving towards first the state and then hopefully federal financial aid starting to support these programs. So students who require financial aid in order to go to school and to gain these now can have access to these programs, whereas before they were limited to associate's degree paths or higher for the most part. A couple other things that we do, we have a GED program. So we do take quite a few students who had not earned their high school diplomas. It was a very small program prior to the pandemic. We moved it online and it exploded. It was really incredible. And we noticed that most of the increase in our students were women. Women who now were able to access the program from home while they were taking care of some family responsibilities. And, the important thing for us is to make sure that, we structured the class in a way that could accommodate them. We also have seen an incredible increase in interest and enrollment in our medical programs, again, driven mostly by adult women who are looking to re-enter the workforce. And I'm sure a lot of you saw many of the articles that talked about the pandemic and the pandemic hitting women workers the hardest across the country. So for us, we've had a lot of conversations around how we can develop our structures so that we can be much more accommodating for women students in our programs. And following the lead from what Beth was saying, it's not just about going through and taking the program, but it's about how we can have this lifelong mentorship. And I'm so glad that you used that term, because just the last program that I want to talk about, which is one that is really important to me and important to a lot of us, is we call it New Start. It's a program that focuses on women who are suffering from challenges through poverty and scarcity in their resources. And the concept behind the program is to develop a community of women with supports to address a lot of the challenges, a lot of the financial challenges that they're facing, and then provide them with this pathway to economic mobility. But through this, again, it's a lifelong mentorship. It's a lifelong engagement with them. And we are now in the third year of the program, and what we're starting to see, first of all, the graduation rates from the program are double our normal graduation rates. So it's working. Second of all, the women in the program have started to move out into the community and hold jobs. And they're starting to take some leadership positions in a number of different projects. They're being brought on by local not-for-profit agencies, foundation agencies, and they're drawing not just on their academic experience from SUNY Ulster, but on the network that we worked to build with them, make them a part of, so that they can continue to draw on that, which has been a benefit to the organizations that have brought them on. And then I know I've talked a lot, but then the last thing I have to mention our Small Business Development Center. If you're not aware of our Small Business Development Center, about 30 years ago, SUNY Ulster brought a federal SBA grant to SUNY Ulster to manage a regional small business development center for the Hudson Valley. So it's a 7-county region throughout Hudson Valley that includes Dutchess County, Orange County, parts of Sullivan County, and then north in Columbia Green out towards Delaware. And though Ulster is kind of in the middle and definitely the smaller county with compared to Dutchess and Orange County, because the SBDC is located in Ulster County, over 40% of the economic impact from the SBDC happens in Ulster County. And that impact averages over $20 million worth of investment in small businesses in our area, and between 600 and 800 new jobs that are developed each year by businesses coming into the area. And SUNY Ulster has been an avid supporter of this for quite a while. So I'll stop there. I could certainly keep going about SUNY Ulster, but just kind of an overview of what we do.
Well, thank you both. And I'm going to open up the floor for questions, but I want to start off Beth, first off, how many, when Pretty Little Liars is filming, about how many people do you suppose are working at that time in the studio?
Well, it depends on the day and how many, it depends on if it's a day where a bunch of extras are there or not, right?
Uh-huh.
So we witnessed a day where they had a shoot with over 250 extras plus a crew of 200. So on a high day, you might have 400 to 500 people working on set, right? On an average day, the crew is about 150.
Mhm. Wow.
And
That's,
that's for a duration of about 8 months. And then they come back year
Mhm.
after year, right? Some of the departments, like the construction department, might work year round, even when they're not shooting, in the production office and things like that.
Mhm. That's great. I mean, that's not insignificant number of people that are employed up there.
Yeah,
That's really
and there are a lot employed there. The multiplier effect gets huge, right? We've seen, since passing the film and television tax credit back with the coalition back in 2017, we've seen over a 300% increase in film and television production up here. And I think there's a couple important trends. One is more and more union productions are coming at a larger scale. And so Stockade Works works really closely with the film and television unions. There's about 11 of them. There are a lot if you look at all the different areas. And we work with the unions to get our graduates on union jobs and permitted to work. And then we also work with our graduates to help them navigate joining unions for all the benefits that they provide.
That's great. And Chris, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I'm thinking specifically of iPark 87. Do businesses come to you to say, hey, we're interested in moving there, and what can you do and to help us develop a workforce? Do you work closely with the county, and how exactly does it work, and how would you fit in? Because I think it's such an important element and piece of the puzzle to make iPark 87 a good place to work and to be employed. So can you just speak a little bit to that, how it kind of works?
Yeah, I think we just, we have to work at being really responsive. Maybe the best way to answer, I'll give you an example of how we worked with a developing company. So you may know of a manufacturing company called Community Manufacturing Solutions in Kingston. It's connected with the Bruderhof community. And what was amazing about that company when they told us about their vision was that they wanted to create a textile company to create textiles for the playthings manufacturing that the Bruderhof does down in their community, which is a little further south in Ulster County. But they wanted to create a company that hired people from the community, and they wanted to create a company that looked at a bottom line of high quality products, well-paid employees with full benefits, a good culture, profit last, which you don't hear much about, right? So certainly it was something that we wanted to help them out with. So we started by looking at some of their basic needs, some of their very basic training needs. And we worked with them to create kind of this entry-level training program for some of their initial employees. We brought in some of our faculty along with their industry experts to kind of to develop this, and then work to find students and then create a pathway into their onto their shop floor. But as they grew and expanded, certainly they needed it needed to be bigger, more capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So we leveraged some of the grant opportunities through SUNY and the New York State Department of Labor to apply for, we put in a grant application for an industrial sewing program, to develop a new industrial sewing program at SUNY Ulster that combined our fashion technology program on one hand and our manufacturing program on the other hand, because it had components of both, and it required faculty and expertise from both. And then through the grant, we were able to get some high-end training equipment, some time and resources to develop specific coursework, and we're installing everything this semester, and then we're rolling it out next semester, and then creating that pathway for community manufacturing and a number of other textile manufacturing program companies that have kind of grown up in the area and are looking to expand. So I think that's probably a pretty good example of one way that it works.
Well, and can I add one thing just that is really exciting to all of us at Upriver and Stockade Works about the vision that the county has brought to iPark 87 thus far, is that there is a lot of thinking around workforce development across many, many sectors. So whether it's Stockade Works, who, by the way, partners with academic institutions, we're like the job readiness part of the pipeline in many cases. So when I heard, when I've been in conversations with Chris and BOCES and BARD and other educational institutions, it sort of sounds like a workforce development dream, even to have all of these entities in one place, right? Because the more we can collaborate and think about really like 8 things Chris Marx has said, I've already taken notes. And I said, oh, I have to talk to Chris about these things. I have ideas, right? So I do think that there is a large vision for workforce development across the campus, which is great.
Yeah, we're getting that sense too. And we're hoping to really be propelling the conversation also. Why, we're all here tonight. Does anybody else have questions? Regis, you've opened your mic.
Yeah. No, I do. I'm not. I'm unmuted. I wanted to say that both of you are so enthusiastic, both you, Beth, and Chris, and I love it. And this gets back to the Laura and the chicken and egg question. I think that what both of you are doing are extremely attractive to businesses wanting to come into our area, because it offers them the possibility of learning, teaching, mentoring. Beth, you said, we pride ourselves in attracting, recruiting, training, and retaining our employees, and then have lifelong mentorship. I mean, that's a dream. That's a dream for anybody that's done workforce development. And Chris, all of the things that you've outlined with green energy and the smart manufacturing, these are things that I think that any and this is something I think we need to advertise. I mean, you are the poster people, as far as I'm concerned, to attract other businesses with your frame of mind. Come here. We'll help you to develop. We'll show you how we have done it, and then we'll enable you to realize the kind of workforce potential that you require, soft skills, hard skills, to make your work go. So I am so impressed with both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Derek and Lou, I saw you had a raised hand early on. Do you guys have a question? We've got just like 1 or 2 minutes here.
Sorry, we've got some puppy stuff going on. No, I was just applauding the speaker at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, thank you for the support. Anybody else have questions? Karen and Wayne, you got no questions tonight? No?
Two
Well-
things I wanted to add in that I didn't add, and they're really brief. One is, interestingly enough, we train people 18 and up, right? Because we want to immediately be able to place people, refer people for work on film and television productions. We do provide auditing and career awareness for people who are under 18. So our career awareness programs are really great. We go into schools or other organizations. And then the fascinating thing is, our median training age is about 37, right? So we've trained people who are 65 looking for a sunset career in film and television, all the way down to, you know, the auditors who are 16 years old. So never too late to work in the movies, they say. We also offer scholarships. So if you go to our website, you'll see there's a tuition for our courses. It's when you apply, you just simply state how much you can afford to pay. And essentially it's a sliding scale. So over 80% of our trainees receive full or partial scholarships.
And, you know, both of you have mentioned, Chris, you've talked about grants and implementing your programs, and that is such an important element. We've come up with this point set many times with this conversation, that a real important part of this is that there has to be support to educate people, whether it be an incentive for the business owner to do it, or support from the government to which you've done with grants, Chris, and scholarships. None of this will happen without that. It's been raised every time. Well, we're a minute over, and we have another hot topic. Chris and Beth, I please stay if you're interested in Chippy, which is our next topic. But I want to say thank you for you both to be here. I'm glad we missed you the last time, but I'm glad that you were here on your own, because we got to hear more from you. And I think, and you have a place here if you have anything you want to say as we go through the development of iPark 87. I'm sure we're going to have you back at some point. But I really want to thank you for your time and for being here and for sharing everything that you do. And we're just so happy that you're both here and doing what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing as well.
Definitely.
Really important project for all of us.
It's very exciting. I mean, and I have to say, workforce development is a really interesting topic. There's just so many components to it, and it's such a positive discussion, you know. So again, thank you for being here. And with that, we'll switch gears from workforce development to the environment. And we have tonight with us to open this discussion, Shannon Harris, who is the former supervisor in the town of Esopus, and she's a founding member of the Hudson 7. And it was the Hudson 7 that worked so hard on the Esopus Creek with the issues with the Ashokan Reservoir and their dumping issues, and made great impact that, and you're going to have to explain it because now I'm forgetting the language, but we actually made a difference and made some impact with cleaning up, hopefully, the Esopus Creek. So she's going to give us an overview of the Champlain Hudson Power Express called Chippy, and explain why it does not merit a pilot. That's sort of the main focus that we're going to take with this tonight. And then we also have with us Phil Erner, who's the newly elected Ulster County Legislature from, I forget what ward in the city of Kingston. You'll tell us when you speak. And he has a memorializing resolution to deny the pilot request, which is worth $65 million. And that will be on the agenda for the Ulster County Legislature's Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Committee on March 3rd. So this is a very hot topic. If it moves through the committee, it could go to the floor for a full legislature vote as early as April. So with that, I will give the floor to Shannon, and then Phil, you two can work out how you do this. But thank you both for being here. Shannon, unmute.
Wow, I didn't know I was on mute. Thank you for that introduction. I feel like I'm on a late night talk show, so this is pretty cool. Thank you for that great introduction. If you don't mind, I mean, I'll kick off. Phil, is that okay?
Please.
All right. So, quick overview. I am Shannon Harris, and I am representing on the Hudson 7, at least for Ulster County tonight, as far as the Hudson 7 is concerned. And what we're talking about is the Champlain Hudson Power Express and Transmission Developers, TDI for short, which is a Blackstone company, and the project to sell electricity from Canada to New York City by trenching a massive electric cable from hydro dams in Canada down the Hudson River. And this project is one of several selected proposals in line for state subsidies worth billions of dollars through Tier 4 renewable energy credits to be paid by utility customers across New York State. And at the same time, TDI, again, Transmission Developers, is seeking hundreds of millions more in local tax breaks in the form of 30-year pilots in the 13 of 15 counties, including Ulster County, along the route where the transmission line would be buried. So the concern here is that in the process, they're churning up the bottom of the Hudson River. And that concerns us, the Hudson 7. We are a group of municipal leaders. I helped found the Hudson 7 along with the other supervisors and mayors. But now I'm just a representative for the town of Esopus, and the 7 municipalities serve and look out for, we're watchdogs for the drinking water of 106,000 residents in Ulster and Dutchess counties that draw our drinking water from the Hudson River. We're a coalition. So in Ulster County, it's not a pipeline, but it's an electric cable, will run 18.5 miles underwater using a jet plowing process. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's an extremely destructive process. If you ever Google that and look up underwater jet plowing. Officials have expressed concern about stirring up known and unknown contaminants from the riverbed using this process. We have been raising concerns from the perspective of drinking water of the 106 residents and businesses who utilize the drinking water. The intake valves are along the route, and in some cases, right in the path within 50 to 100 feet of where the trenching would occur. And the trenching is going to dredge up high turbid contaminants for this entire stretch. So this is a huge public health concern. The 5 public water supplies are Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, Rhinebeck, Esopus, and Lloyd, that would supply 3 hospitals, 3 colleges, and major regional employers. And that includes firefighting and other industries. So the first issue is, testing. When we first started talking to TDI about this project, we noticed right away, not only did they not have any insurance that would adequately cover, what would happen if one of our drinking water supplies got knocked out by their project, but they hadn't even thought through the testing of how this would work should some of the contaminants enter our intake valves. So we've been very active in working with them. When this project was permitted 10 years ago, they just didn't think through any of this. So the Hudson 7 has gained a lot of traction. Even NYSERDA, which did issue tax credits to this project a couple months ago, now has put a stipulation and a condition in their decision to coordinate with the Hudson 7. So we are getting some traction through our latest efforts. But we have started to put on paper a monitoring and testing protocol on what we would like to see TDI do, which is basically a pre-testing program. And so our engineers have put in place, a working group that includes the Ulster County Health Department, State Health Department, and we're doing a sampling testing near the intakes at Rhinebeck, and they're going to do some pre-jet plowing near one of the intakes to see what kind of sediments get churned up, and to do this in a controlled environment, to see and sample and monitor what comes in, and use that test to develop a monitoring protocol in real time so that we can have a plan in place for the other water treatment plants. There's still some hope that the project doesn't go through at all, but at this point, we're not counting on that. The company is simultaneously pursuing all of these tax breaks through local pilots. It is counting on getting a lot of these local pilots as part of its business strategy. So we're particularly interested in making sure these requests are flatly rejected. That is in part why Phil is involved, and we're very interested that this is a bipartisan effort, that everyone understands that the nexus between the foundation for why that a pilot is necessary is not met in this case. In fact, the only benefit of this project at all would be the taxes that we would get and would need if anything were to happen. So Ulster County over 30 years is projected to get, I believe, $92 million. I don't know the latest figures, but it's around $92 million in taxes from this project. If it were approved, if the pilot were granted, that amount would be reduced to just $29 million. And we just see no reason for that whatsoever. This project is not providing any jobs whatsoever. So I'm bringing to your attention a letter that was drafted by the Hudson 7. And I don't know if you've seen the letter, but I can read you quickly. The Hudson 7 has serious concerns about the construction related risks posed by the installation of the electricity transmission cables near drinking water intake valves in the Hudson, including the towns of Esopus and Lloyd, Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, and Rhinebeck. We write to urge the Ulster County IGA to deny any tax incentive for Chippy because of its negative impact on Ulster County. Chippy proposes for example, the proposed route is within 50 feet of Esopus's drinking water intake. The toxins in the disturbed sediments present a risk of contaminating public drinking water supplies. The Hudson 7 has been communicating with TDI in the hopes of mitigating these impacts. But it is not yet clear whether this will be possible given the existence of undocumented hotspots of pollution in the bottom of the river. The Chippy developer has said construction contractors would only be working in the mid-Hudson segment of the river for 1 to 2 months, and then you would, quote, never see us again, adding that the electric cable would be completely invisible in Ulster County. When asked how many jobs the project would create, the very foundation of any pilot request, the developer could not comment on any number. So there is no benefit at all. There is no public benefit, reduction in taxes and abatement such as that would only be warranted in such a case of a public benefit. And in fact, the taxes are the public benefit, the only public benefit at all. Otherwise, we assume all the risk with absolutely no benefit. So that is my report on what the Hudson 7 have been doing, and our thoughts and our views on this. And I would turn it over to you, Phil.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you, Town of Ulster citizens, for having us here tonight. Laura, for inviting me specifically. I'm really grateful to be able to bring this memorializing resolution, actually, that Laura Petit, your legislator, Shannon, is as credited as the sponsor. She cobbled it together, but this has been an effort of many organizations such as the Hudson 7 and local officials and regular folks just rising up and saying this is not in our public's interest whatsoever. Now, I put a few links in there. You can see the resolution that we have. And as you mentioned, Shannon, there's still some hope we could stop it entirely. That would involve a state to intercede at this point, but we can talk about that if folks want to. I appreciate how you all at Hudson 7 also are really trying to just deal with the possibility that it does go through and mitigate for that. But also the different aspects that you covered, Shannon, from the financial with Blackstone connection, that this is really a nonpartisan issue. We have sponsors from different parties in the legislature, the contaminants, and just like, imagine doing this to your drinking water. Like, who would voluntarily accept this? And some of the other links that I sent there were from testimony. I'm trying to find, basically, if you click that YouTube link that I put in the chat, one of them goes to what I had to say, so I won't repeat that here. And I think the other one might go to what somebody from Riverkeeper had to say, but there were many, what I found interesting about that meeting, and I highly encourage Town of Ulster citizens to go and watch this. It's very instructive. You have a number of electeds up and down, really the whole eastern part of our state weighing in, and a lot of them were in favor of it simply because it would bring revenue. Now, as you correctly pointed out, Shannon, it's going to bring a lot less revenue if we give them a pilot. It's going to bring less than $30 million as opposed to over 90. But a lot of communities are feeling like the state's not letting us say yes or no. So the only thing we can do is work with these folks and take the money because we're desperate. Well, it doesn't make sense if we're gonna sacrifice our children and grandchildren's future, right? And what we heard, besides from the electeds who probably have had a seat at the table directly, was from other residents who probably didn't, who were saying this is really not good for our families and our drinking water, and there is no community benefit. So I found it very instructive to listen, and also to hear from a representative of some of the First Nations who live around the dam that is already constructed in northern Quebec, and just the impact that it's having up there. We actually have a letter from representatives of 5 different First Nations that we reference in our resolution, and it seems like more are coming in all the time. We got another letter also from an advocacy group in New York City. So even New York City, where the power would be delivered, folks are saying, we don't really need this. It's a similar tired argument that in my opinion, of greenwashing, where you say it's clean power, but not if you're destroying some other ecosystem or some other part of the environment. It's not really green. And I think it's an old way of thinking, and the new way has to be, how can we generate our power and transmit it as locally as possible, where we know what the impacts are in our community and we'll be responsible for those. So I don't have a lot more to add at this point, and but happy to take questions. And yeah.
I just want to build on something you said as well, Phil. The reason that Dan Scammer and the Astoria permits were denied by the New York State DEC is because they conflict with the New York Climate Leadership Community Protection Act, okay? Chippy's source of power, hydropower, is not a low carbon source of energy. It's the same argument. Hydropower from dams is also a dirty source of power. It's the same argument as Dan Scammer. So it's, if New York State approves it, it would be subsidizing another project that over the next 25 years directly contradicts New York State's own Climate Act goals, and that requires zero emission energy by 2040. So it doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. I don't know why it's getting the subsidies that it is. So that's another aspect of it. It's not just sacrificing our local community as it goes by and putting at risk our drinking water and providing absolutely no benefit to us, while we take on all the risk as it helps generate, sell power to New York City from Canada, not even within our own borders. But it doesn't even meet the state's own criteria for low emissions power generation.
I think, New York State has a history of that. It's reminding me when we were fighting Glide Path, and they were talking about that this was going to burn natural gas, which was a cleaner form of energy, which it still would have been dirty. But it would have burned fracked gas, which New York State doesn't allow to have happen here. So we're okay with another state or another country having that risk. So, and we'll use it. It's absurd, the hypocrisy of that concept.
Yeah. So that's the reality of this, and having a pilot, I mean, that just makes absolutely zero. It's really just a corporate strategy to reduce their costs. Why would we at all take on all of that risk? And why would we just give that to them? We are absolutely entitled to that as a community. That is the minimum that we should be expecting for taking on all of the risk. And it is the only benefit of this project. Do not take that away from the people of Ulster County.
Cynthia.
Wayne, we have a question. Phil, did you want to say something before we go to a question?
Oh, well, I wanted to answer at least Cynthia's second question, which is
okay.
The pilot is the Ulster County Industrial Development Agency has been approached about the pilot. That's generally who would provide such things. They seemed disinclined to offer it back toward the end of last year, in the last time that I know of where they made any public comment about it. So our memorializing resolution supports them in that decision, basically, and asks them to not change, to make that decision in the end that they sounded like they were going to make, and not provide it. As far as your first question, Cynthia, well, this is a great step to participate in your organization. I think, unfortunately, the IDA does not really have to answer directly to the people. We appoint their membership as legislators, and then they go and do their thing. But they do have to have public meetings at which we can comment. We can send them letters and other statements like that. Does anybody else have any thoughts as to, were you asking specifically, Cynthia, about the about pressuring regarding the pilot, or more something else?
I don't know if she can unmute. I think let's talk about what we can do. Let's hold off on that question for the end of the discussion, because I think then we can make more sense of what to do. So let's get the other questions, and we won't ignore that, Cynthia. But let's just come back to that. So Karen, Wayne, you had a question?
Mm-hmm. Yes, two. One is there any chance that they would go through with this, that they would still try to go through this project if they didn't get the pilot money? And then secondly, obviously they want to put it in the river, I assume, because that's the fastest, cheapest way for them to run the cable. But do they have some kind of if they're not allowed to do that, do they have some alternative, probably more costly plan that they could still run the cable but not in the river?
I will just say this: when we first engaged in a discussion with them, that was our first approach. We asked them, what were your alternatives? They are permitted for the river route in Ulster County. We asked them what their alternatives were, and they did not even want to entertain that discussion because we were adamant that they had to come out of the river because of our intake valves. So they insisted that their permit is already granted, and that they would need to start all over if there was a new route, that would be too costly, and they had no desire at all to entertain any alternatives at this point because they already held the permits to go in the river. So we were very disheartened by that because we were very firm that we wanted them to go out of the river, but that was a non-starter.
Yeah, so presumably on other parts of this long journey that this cable takes, there are other areas where it is not in the water, where it is on land or buried or suspended or something.
Yeah, up where the GE plant and the spill, it is terrestrial up there, where there are known PCBs in the sediment. They do come out of the water there, where there are known lawsuits and other documented areas of contamination, let's say. Down here, further downstream, there isn't that level of documentation, and they were permitted.
Regis?
Yeah, I first of all, I want to thank both of you for being custodians of our precious resource, the Hudson River. And Shannon, you've done remarkable work, particularly on the lower Esopus Creek and getting that into a reconsideration. So all of that's great. And Phil, I've heard your testimony on the PSC hearing, and you are really to the point. And I don't know if anybody could make those points better than what you did. What is the entity, the state entity that's most involved? Is it PSC? Is it DEC? Because there would have to be an EIS, an environmental impact statement. Is it, it is, NYSERDA is involved, but what is the decision entity within the state that to whom we should be appealing. I know that River Keepers had quite a bit of letter writing and on this topic. But what is the chief entity? Certainly ourselves. We have to locally make some decisions, and the two of you are working very hard on that. But on a statewide level, which is the main one.
My understanding is that the seeker is complete.
Mhm.
The Public Service Commission is at play right now. The only person who could pull this potentially is the governor. She
Mhm.
has been approached, and we were hopeful that she would entertain that, but thus far has been unwilling. Certainly Cuomo was not interested in pulling this at all. We were hopeful that Hochul would be, but I don't think she is. I don't know at the higher political levels how much room there is for negotiation. It seems to be a foregone conclusion, and I don't know how much these pilots weigh into the corporate cost benefit strategy. So there were 7 projects that applied for Tier 4 energy credits. And I'm not entirely sure. It seems like this is going to go through. I would need to get back to you on exactly where the wiggle room is and where all I know is that the seeker is a foregone conclusion at this point, which is hard to believe. I think it's really the governor's decision. There would
I
have
wonder
to be a huge outpouring, a public, outcry and big PR to do, an unpopular outpouring prior to the election that would make it in her interest to not pursue this project.
Mm-hmm. And then she could maybe tell, let's say, DEC, much like the DEP has to do this follow along or follow up EIS. I forget what it's called, sequential or whatever it is. I forget what the term is. So, and it's a way. It's sort of like an appeal process. And I'm wondering if we locally, if we get enough counties in on this, and I don't know where Dutchess County is, right across the river. Are they for this or against this, Dutchess County? Do you know?
Well, I would say that the public officials at the local level are,
right,
similar to how we feel about it. The Dutchess legislators submitted comments to support Hudson 7.
Right.
I think, though, that this is still, unlike the very visible impacts that we see the muddy waters having on everybody. Can see that it's happening, right? This is something that hasn't happened yet. So people, your average fisherman, impacted individual hasn't yet engaged with this. This is all too theoretical for enough groundswell to get behind and support this. So I think there's an issue there. There would need to be a huge PR effort to really raise awareness in enough time to make people realize, a huge campaign that would involve media and commercials to show the impact of the jet plowing, to warn of the impact of the public health risk and the environmental risk. Because it's the destruction of environmental concern. It would have to be momentous and expensive in order to capture the public's attention. in order to then create the burning platform to get everyone so stirred up about it, to raise, the kind of profile that we've seen around this other issue, to then trigger the governor to want to have and say, hey, let's take another look at this. Even though seeker was passed X number of years ago, now times have changed. We didn't take into consideration the drinking water. We didn't take into consideration this or that. Now we have these new climate act emission goals. Let's do another look. It would require a lot. That's my view.
Mhm. Mhm. I where I'm leading, of course, is where should we concentrate our energies? I agree with you that that we need to keep the pressure up on the IDA as an independent entity. And by the way, their UTEP, their Universal Tax Exemption Policy, and other attending policies are written such that anything goes. So really, and I understand that there might be a reconfiguration of some of the decision making, within IDA in our county, and that might be a good thing.
I would say the most productive thing that you can do is support the Ulster County legislature right now as they move to have a bipartisan resolution that urges the IDA to reject this request for a pilot. There's a meeting, I believe, on March 15th. Phil, help me with the logistics, but that I think would be the most productive place to start. We can't let them get away with that. I'm not sure we're going to get the fanfare to put a halt to the entire project, but at least we can stop what's happening right now, what could be on the table right now, which is to lose the benefit, the only possible benefit, which is the tax revenue. So let's see, Phil says tomorrow, what does he say?
Economic Development Committee meeting at 6:30 p.m.
So because our memorializing resolution concerns the Industrial Development Agency, it goes to the committee that governs that, which is Economic Development, and they meet tomorrow night at 6:30. The public is not guaranteed to get to speak at that, but if enough folks showed up, the chair reserves the right to allow that. Or talk with your legislators, talk with Brian Cahill. Your legislator is the chair of that committee. So he's got a lot of power over not only this resolution and what happens to it, but also the appointment process for the Industrial Development Agency itself. So that's something that you all in the town of Ulster are have more power than anyone else in the county to influence, in my opinion. So take note. I wanted to augment what you were talking about, Shannon, and also expand an answer to your questions, Regis, about who has the power right now. And I also need to look more into it, but I do see a letter from just a few weeks ago from 7 Dutchess County legislators, and they wrote to the governor and the head of the Public Service Commission asking them to deny these Tier 4 energy credits for the program. And they cite the reasons there. Let me see if I can share. This is up on the Riverkeeper site, so I believe I can share that letter with you all like this.
And I was just going to bring that up, so thank you. I actually have it ready to share.
Oh, great.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, Rebecca just sent this. Who is on the phone here with us? I don't know if she can speak at all. But they've extended the time to make comments. and it is until March 7th. You can see here with a March 7 extension for reply comments regarding the proposed Tier 4 contract award to the Champlain Hudson Power Express project. There is still time to send a message saying you oppose the Chippy project and the use of New York's clean energy funds to support it. Your comments have already made a difference. Members of the Public Service Commission are openly expressing doubts about the Chippy project. They are hearing from a broad range of individuals and organizations who are demanding better. With more comments on this right now, we have a chance to win this fight and bring genuine clean energy to New York City. And if you go to the bottom of the page, all you have to do is put in your information. You can personalize the letter or not and just send it off. I did it today. So to answer Cynthia's questions, first off, this is the first action everyone can take to do this, and send it out, post it on Facebook, and ask your friends to sign this also and send this letter. Why are we going to be giving subsidies to this? That's going to have absolutely no benefit for us and actually harm us. So this is important. I'm going to, well, Phil put it in the chat. You can copy the link, and if you can't, write to me and I'll send it to you. So just let me know if you want, but really this is at least some, the least we can do is to sign this letter and send it in.
Phil, will this resolution also be discussed at the Energy, Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting on March 3rd?
As far as I know, it will not. However, everyone from that committee has signed the letter, has signed on as a co-sponsor.
Great.
Yeah.
So Phil, also to clarify, the ask that we would want of Brian Cahill is for him to support the resolution to deny the pilot, right?
I think so. Yeah, we spoke by phone. He said that he would support that resolution, but I'm sure it couldn't hurt for you all to call him up and say you do too.
I've always said, even if you think your legislator or your representative is going to do what you want, giving them that support is always an important thing to do, because then they feel they're doing the right thing. So those of us on this phone call, we all know Brian Cahill. So I think so signing the Riverkeeper letter and contacting Brian, if anybody needs his email address, again, let me know and I'll forward it and send him a note and say, please support that resolution, deny that pilot. If the only thing we're going to get out of this is money, then why are we going to give any of that up? It makes no sense.
I have a few more thoughts, if I might, around the ongoing question, like how to apply pressure and can we even stop it? The lieutenant governor is scheduled to be in our county this Friday, and I'm trying to find out if I can. Well, I've been invited to join that tour, although I haven't found out details yet. Apparently, they're making stops from between 4:30 and 6:30 in the evening in City of Kingston and Lake Katrine, and maybe as far up as Saugerties. But it seems like it's centered kind of around the town of Ulster, the visit. So I would suggest, if you want to know more about that, I heard an invitation from Senator Hinchy, but call up Senator Hinchy's office tomorrow and ask them, hey, we heard the lieutenant governor is going to be in town Friday. Where's he going? And can we follow him around or something like that? But right, why not? Why not go right to the executive and tell them what we think about this and anything else? And then in terms of if we wanted to organize or get with some other organizations that I'm sure are sympathetic to our position on this, we could do some brainstorming about that as well. Some other local organizers around things like climate, around things like public power or local power, and environmental justice and so forth.
Good idea.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you. So we're at 8:29 and we try to keep this to 8:30. So does anybody have any questions, or Phil or Shannon, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share? All right, well, and it just turned 8:30. So Phil and Shannon, thank you very much for being here. And for, you know what, I have one last question. The Blackstone company that you mentioned at the beginning, that's not it has nothing to do with Eric Prince, does it? No, that's is that Blackwater? Am I confusing?
For
You
more
know who I'm
information, you'll
talking
want to
about.
just go to the Riverkeeper website for more information. I think they are, Blackstone is one of these, you know, it's so late and I have a cold, so I'm not thinking clearly, but you know, they're one of these private equity type big they own TDI. They're one of these big financing.
Okay, then it's not, and I'm thinking I'm mixing up Blackwater and Blackstone. I'm sorry. It just rang a bell when you said that. So and I will go to River.
I have one thing to say about Blackstone. We definitely need to, if Blackstone's involved, they're involved in continuing our old ways of fracked gas, fossil fuel projects, and basically extracting whatever they can out of the energy sector at this point. We definitely should not trust them at all with these projects. When I lived in Eastern Dutchess County, they were providing some financing for this pipeline that would bring fracked gas over to the Cricket Valley Energy Center. And that should be illegal based on our state law. So that tells you all you need to know.
Okay. Well, thank you. And Shannon and Phil, thank you very much for being here and sharing all this information. Everybody online here, if you have any questions about what we've talked about, you want the links, just write to me and let me know. But we really appreciate, Shannon and Phil, your time and sharing all the information. Hopefully if we need to have you back, you'll be willing as this goes on. And if there's anything that we can do, please stay in touch, that we can share the information and help the cause.
Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Have a great night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.